The capital of Khartoum has been shaken by a power struggle between the Sudanese army and a notorious paramilitary group, resulting in at least 25 deaths and hundreds of injuries. Residents evaded gunfire as opposing forces fought for control of the presidential palace, state television, and army headquarters. Tensions erupted as a result of a proposed transition to civilian rule. Both the army and its adversaries, the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, claim control over strategic locations like the airport. The conflict proceeded through the night. Violence was also reported in other parts of the country, including Darfur region cities. The army reports that jets are attacking RSF bases, and the country's air force has advised citizens to remain in their residences, as it conducts a comprehensive aerial survey of paramilitary activity. The combat is between army units loyal to the de facto leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the RSF, commanded by Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, the Vice President of Sudan. General Dagalo stated that his forces would continue to fight until all army bases were captured. In response, the Sudanese armed forces ruled out the possibility of negotiations or dialogue until the dissolution of the paramilitary RSF, and General Burhan ordered the dissolution of the group. The Sudanese Doctors' Union told Reuters on Saturday evening that at least 25 people have been murdered and 183 others injured as a result of the violence. It stated that it was uncertain how many of the casualties were civilians. Earlier, the union reported that 3 civilian deaths had been confirmed. Citing the United Nations, a journalist from the Washington Post reported 30 fatalities and nearly 400 injuries. A concise overview of the current situation in Sudan. People were captured on camera fleeing and hiding as black smoke rose over Khartoum, and unrest continued. A Reuters journalist reported that there were armored vehicles on the streets, and video from Khartoum airport showed a civilian aircraft on fire. Saudia reported that one of its Airbuses was attacked. Saudia and Egyptair have suspended flights to Khartoum, and Sudan's border with Chad has been closed. A British Sudanese doctor visiting relatives in Khartoum told the BBC, "We have no electricity. It is warm. We cannot afford to open the windows because of the deafening din." Another eyewitness, speaking to the BBC through her sister in Kenya, stated, "Shooting is still ongoing, and people are staying indoors. There is so much panic and fear." She stated that residents were unprepared for the conflict and that many were trapped in transit. Bridges and roads were closed, and many institutions were placed on lockdown. A military aircraft flew over Dwar Tariq's building as she was speaking to the BBC. "They are shooting live ammunition at the roof of the house next door, and we're just now taking shelter," she said. The EU, United Kingdom, and United States have all demanded an immediate end to the violence. The Secretary-General of the United Nations has urged Generals Burhan and Dagalo to halt the violence. Ambassador John Godfrey of the United States stated, "I awoke to the deeply disturbing sounds of gunfire and combat. I am currently sheltering with the embassy personnel, as are Sudanese throughout Khartoum and the rest of the country." According to Reuters, the Russian embassy was also concerned about the escalation of violence and called for a ceasefire. The RSF asserts control over at least 3 airports, the army chief's residence, and the presidential palace, but in an interview with Al Jazeera, General Burhan denied these claims. There are also reports of fighting at the state television station, which, according to eyewitnesses, is now under RSF control. General Dagalo, also known as Hemedti, told Al Jazeera that General Burhan was a criminal who would be executed or face justice. Earlier, the RSF had reported an attack on one of its sites south of Khartoum. According to the army, RSF militants were attempting to seize the military headquarters. Fighters from the Rapid Support Forces attacked several army camps in Khartoum and elsewhere in Sudan. Army spokesman Brigadier General Nabil Abdullah is quoted as saying by the AFP news agency, "Clashes are ongoing, and the military is carrying out its responsibility to protect the nation. The Reuters news agency also reports that witnesses in the northern city of Meroe reported hearing gunfire. According to a video published by the RSF, Egyptian troops surrendered to them in Meroe. The Egyptian military stated that its soldiers were conducting exercises with their Sudanese counterparts in Sudan, and that it was coordinating with Sudanese authorities to ensure the protection of its personnel. Since the October 2021 revolution, the country has been governed by the Sovereign Council, which consists of generals. Gen Burhan is the council's president, while Hemedti serves as vice president. The proposed transition to a civilian-led government, however, has stalled due to the delay in integrating the RSF into the national army. The RSF desired a 10-year postponement, whereas the army recommended a timeline of 2 years. Hemedti was a central figure in the Darfur conflict that began in 2003 and has resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. Western powers and regional leaders had urged both parties to de-escalate tensions and resume negotiations aimed at restoring civilian rule. On Friday, there were indications that the situation would be resolved. The coup in 2021 ended a period of more than 2 years, in which civilian and military leaders shared authority. This agreement was reached after longtime authoritarian Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir was deposed. Since the rebellion, there have been regular pro-democracy demonstrations in Khartoum.